Welcome to another episode of 9 to 5 Mac Weekly, where I really want to know how Dr. Dre got down from that roof after the halftime show. Like, seriously, who let him up there? But I am your host, Miles Somerville, and if you're a fan of good ideas, consider subscribing to the channel for future content like this. As I said in the last episode, we're getting closer and closer to some 2022 Apple hardware seeing the light of day, and now we've got confirmation that at least 3 new Macs should be coming this year. So today we're going to talk about what Macs I think are going to be coming at this event. So in recent years, a pretty good way of knowing when Apple's going to drop some new hardware soon is by checking the Eurasian Regulatory Database. This is something that Apple has to do for any device they create with encryption technology. They gotta square up with the Eurasian Economic Commission first, and Apple usually does this within a few months of said products getting an official release. So we've got these 3 model numbers that we know for sure are Mac devices. We also know that at least one of these Macs is a MacBook of some kind, and that makes perfect sense because we've been hearing a lot about this new MacBook Air and a new 13-inch MacBook Pro rumored to be powered by the M2 chip. But there's been so much back and forth as to when these devices would launch within the year. But Apple's been known to release new versions of the MacBook Air and Pro during this time of the year, so it's definitely possible that we'll see one or the other release at this event. Maybe both. We also heard reports of a potential Mac Mini refresh coming at this event, but the problem is that we don't really have any indication thus far as to whether this new Mac Mini is a Pro-level, performance-oriented model or the M2 base model refresh, and there's a few reasons why I'm kind of stuck on what Mac Mini we're potentially going to see at this event. Firstly, it's more or less a sure thing that whatever MacBook we see next is going to be powered by M2 or whatever the next generation Mac chip is called. And just going by what happened with the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros, we're expecting this high-performance Mac Mini to run on M1 Pro and Max chips, but that would be pretty weird for Apple to show off an M1 Pro Mac Mini and introduce M2 within the same event. That just doesn't sound right. So that leaves us with a few different scenarios. The first potential scenario is that we don't get a new Apple laptop at this event, and all we get is this M1 Pro and Max Mac Mini alongside the iPhone SE and iPad Air. The second potential scenario is that we don't get the Mac Mini and we get the M2 MacBook Air alongside the iPhone SE and iPad Air at this event. The third potential scenario is that we get both an M2 Mac Mini and MacBook Air at this event, but then that means there probably won't be an M1 Pro and M1 Max version of the Mac Mini. And some people may be saddened to hear that, but here's why I honestly think we still could see this high-performance Mac Mini. If you go on the Apple website, you'll see that Apple still considers the 6-core Intel Mac Mini to be a superior model to the M1 variants, and in some technical ways, the Intel Mini is technically higher end. The Intel Mini's got double the Thunderbolt ports that the M1 Mini has, even though they both have 2 Thunderbolt controllers, so the performance in that arena is essentially the same. Then there's the fact that the Intel Mini has upgradable memory. You can throw in up to 64 gigs of memory in the Mini, as opposed to the 16 gigabyte limit you've got on M1. And then there's the eGPU capabilities of the Intel Mini, allowing you to tap into some serious graphics hardware. But when it comes down to real-world performance, the M1 Mini is definitely the superior machine for most tasks, if you ask me, and I feel like there's gotta be a reason that Apple is leaving the Intel models on the product page like that. When Apple introduced the M1 MacBook Pro, they left the higher-end Intel models up on the site until the 14 and 16-inch MacBooks came out, so I feel like they're doing the same thing for this Mac Mini, and who knows, this could be a case of Apple just wanting to have at least one Intel Mac readily available for customers who need it, but I feel like there's gotta be more to it than that. There's also the highly anticipated 27-inch iMac, or iMac Pro as it's currently being called by many, and although I wouldn't necessarily call it strange for Apple to launch this high-end iMac in the spring, I think it's definitely strange to launch what's going to be likely a very expensive product alongside these 2 budget and mid-range devices like the iPhone SE and iPad Air. Display analyst Ross Young also recently tweeted that he doesn't believe this iMac will drop until the summer, and I think that makes a lot more sense for this kind of product, and it also lines up with when Apple updated the larger iMac last time. Now there's still the rumored M2 MacBook Pro that's supposed to replace the current M1 variant with the previous gen design. We've heard some reports that suggest we could be seeing this new MacBook Pro sometime in the first half of this year, and as far as what this machine will look like, it should more or less be a copy and paste of the 14 inches design, but with some downgrades in the display and ports, and obviously no touch bar. When all this news dropped, Mark Gurman weighed in on Twitter and said that he's expecting multiple Macs at this event, and he's expecting multiple, and I repeat, multiple Mac Minis this year, and he says a regular and Pro model. So I guess the question now is, which Mac Mini is going to launch first. But what Macs do you guys think we're going to get at this event or in the first half of the year in general? Because this is supposed to be the year that Apple completes the transition. So theoretically, everything that we've been hearing about, all these rumored machines, they should all come to light, all come to the surface finally by the end of this year. The MacBooks are great and all, but Apple won't survive for long unless they finally realize the importance of a smart fridge lineup. You know what? That is a pretty good idea, and honestly, the company's called Apple, so I think them having a refrigerator is only like the perfect thing to do. I'm sure if Apple made it, it would be incredibly expensive, but I can imagine all these little conveniences that the fridge would have that normal fridges don't. I think it could be quite neat. Two of the models are describing the Mac Minis with either M1 Pro or M1 Max SoCs. The third is still an unknown, but you never know if it is referring to the new MacBook Air with the M2 SoC based on the A15 SoCs and the iPhone 13 and current iPad mini. So yeah, we did some digging, and other Apple YouTubers have gone into this as well. And basically, we've pretty much confirmed that Apple has never done different SKUs or different model numbers for the Mac Minis in the past, even with different CPU and GPU configurations. So this has to be an entirely new Mac altogether. One of these two Macs are not the same. So we'll just have to see what it is, but it's not two different Mac Minis. It could be this iMac Pro that we've been hearing about. It could be a 27-inch iMac that's not the Pro iMac we've been waiting for, but kind of an intermediate between the 24 and the real iMac Pro with Apple Silicon. So we'll see. It could be a handful of things. It also could be this M2 MacBook Pro or Air. If I were to guess, I'd probably say that it's likely the Air, the Pro, and the Mac Mini powered by M2. I was going to buy the MacBook Pro in April, but I guess it doesn't hurt seeing what the MacBook Air has to offer, depending on RAM, screen, and ports. It may be an option for me, and I assume many others. See, if I didn't necessarily need a powerhouse workstation laptop on the go like I currently do, then the MacBook Air would be my daily laptop, period. Like, it is still, I'd say, the best value laptop you can buy as far as performance, reliability, build quality. It's still got one of the best displays out there. The keyboard experience is great now that they fixed it. The battery life is fantastic. It's super lightweight and just, you can bring it with you everywhere. If you can get one of those for like under $800 or especially under $700 or something like that on the used market even, that's a great deal. The M1 MacBook Air is a great deal, and so I have no doubt that this M2 MacBook Air is going to be just as good. There's not really a lot they have to do, all they have to do is throw the M2 chip inside, give it a redesign, make it not too ugly, give us some decent color options, and boom, you've got yourself another winner. Translating the Console Mac article to English, it says one is a portable device and that it doesn't mean all three devices are coming next month. So I believe it is a cheaper MacBook Pro, a Mac Mini Pro, and the iMac Pro, but the iMac Pro won't be announced till WWDC. Hope I'm wrong. Yeah, I think one of these devices could be an iMac, but I don't know. I think it's more likely that they'd have this M2 MacBook Pro and Air ready to go before this iMac Pro. There's been so many rumors suggesting that there's been delays due to the mini LED display, although we don't know if this supposed 27-inch regular iMac that could be coming is going to have a mini LED display or not. There's so many question marks regarding the larger iMac right now, but we're just going to have to wait and see. But I definitely think at least one of these devices is a Mac Mini for sure, and obviously the other one is a laptop, more than likely the MacBook Air, if it's not the Pro. But that's about it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for future content like this, because we're getting closer and closer to this event. All this hardware is going to drop, and you're going to need to know everything about it, so that's what we're here for. So be sure to subscribe, because all those videos are coming very soon, and I thank you guys for watching. Talk to you guys in the next one.